Well, hey y'all, we are back. I'm so excited to be with you again. We are going to be working on a depth exercise today that I like to call psychedelic trees. Harkening back to one of my favorite eras of time, it's the 1960s. So I drew a little tree to start with in the middle of my page, just using a pencil and an eraser. And then we're going to be using this permanent rose and this dioxazine purple and good old aquamarine, or a teal color if you have it. So those three colors are going to be what we're working with today. So what we're going to do first, and these are kind of the brushes you're going to need. We're going to need a wash brush. You're going to need your trusty number 12. You can see that. Whatever brushes you have, a number 12 is great. Is a long barrel brush with a point at the end. And then this is my kind of utility brush. It's a number 6 round. It comes to a little bit of a point. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over the page with a good amount of water, okay? And don't worry about the pencil marks. They're still going to be there. We aren't going to be erasing any of them. What we're going to be doing is just painting over them. So if you do use regular water with a brush, you can do that, or you can use your spray bottle and spritz it down real good and use that wash brush to really rub it in. Make sure you get edge to edge, top to bottom, just as much as you can. We don't really want any dry patches when we start with this. Okay, just give it a good soak. Just make sure, like when you tip it up or down, that you can see a good sheen across the page. And then you'll know you're pretty much there when it feels good and kind of soaking wet. Okay, and that page is going to be really thirsty because we're using that 100% cotton paper. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is this rose color. Okay, and I'm just going to get, so just as much paint as I really want to on this, but the mixture, I would say, between the paint and the water should be about 75% water and 25% paint. So when you spread it across the page like that, it's really gonna just disperse really easily, and it's gonna leave a really pretty light pastel-y kind of shade behind. We're not doing super opaque colors yet, see? So when I do this with the purple, like I said, we're gonna want about 75% water, 25% color. And if you can do this and you can see white when you drag your brush across the bottom of your paint pan, that means you're about there. So see, you've got nice, there's pretty color, but it's more pastel than it is opaque. Okay, so just swish that across there in no particular order. We're really looking more for texture and just fun, interesting kind of effects across the page more than perfection, if that makes sense. Okay, and here is our teal aquamarine. It's my favorite color. I love it so much. Purples and pinks and blues are like the best ever. My personal opinion, but that's my favorite pairings. You'll see that a lot in my paintings personally. But I thought that would be fun to start with for this piece. So go ahead, and if it looks too bright, don't panic. Remember, we've got a lot of water on this page, so it's going to move around, okay? It's going to mix in with those pinks and make purples, and yeah, it's just going to be really nice. The other thing you can do, if you feel like it's too strong, go ahead and spray it. Spray it and help disperse and soften edges, and then just smush it around the page. That's all we want. No rhyme or reason to it. Go. This is one of my favorite things to do, is just make those fun, like atmospheric kind of backgrounds. And you can still see our tree here, so that's where we want the color to land, because it is going to dry down a lot lighter than you think it will. So you can still see the lines of the tree though, because that's what's important, okay? And I'm not putting any branches on this tree other than like a couple, and there's no leaves. This is just more about seeing the trunks of the trees, okay? Now we're going to take our salt and just sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. I've found that I really like this pink Himalayan salt for this particular, I know all salt's kind of the same, but I've got a consistent, I don't know what do you call it, desaturation with these salt crystals. I really like the Himalayan salt crystals for this. So, and now, you know, I'm impatient, so I'm going to use a hairdryer. We're going to start to see some of those spots come up that we love so much. Love it, love it, love it. Perfect. Okay. So now we have a great texture going. This looks awesome right here in particular. I love it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add another foreground tree. So what we're doing is we're creating a lighter foreground and then a darker background. So think about it like you've come into a forest at night. So what you're going to see more clearly is whatever's in front of you, and if it's off at a distance in the dark, it's going to look further away. So we're creating depth that way. So, and we're going to do that backwards too. Like in the daytime, things that are in the foreground look a little bit darker, and then if it's further away, it's a little brighter. But this is more of a nighttime experiment. So the foreground's going to be that lighter color, that lighter texture that we're creating right here. So I'm going to add one more little tree over here because I really think it needs another foreground light pop of color. And these trees can be any shape you want. I'm just choosing, like, you could do them just straight up and down like aspens if you wanted to. Just a row of aspens in the front. But make sure to leave enough space for what we're going to do next. So I only do 1, 2, at the most 3 in the foreground. But particularly I just like 1 or 2 when you're dealing with this size page. Now if I'd flipped this horizontally and done it across the entire page, I would have done at least 3 foreground trees. But since I'm working in a smaller area, I'm going to just use 2. All right, so now we're going to take our number 12 brush. And so the kind of paint we're going to be using this time is pretty darn opaque. And you notice that I did not go in and wet the page first. I'm not doing that this time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with just a pretty wet paint on the brush itself, okay? So this is another form of water control. This is more wet on dry, not necessarily wet on wet, okay? But you can see we can still blend those colors really nicely. And what I'm doing is I'm going really right up against that line of the tree, right up against that pencil mark. And I'm making sure that I'm paying attention to those edges. And then I'm just going ham, y'all. Like, use the 3 colors, mix them up. Start with the magenta or that pinky color, throw in some blue, come in with some dioxazine purple. Just throw it all in there. Doesn't have to, there's no rhyme or reason because we're going to be creating a lot of movement in this painting. Okay, so again, just being very careful and mindful of those edges. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, get right up on that pencil mark so it's not necessarily what you're seeing after you've finished painting. It'll cover it up nicely. Okay, and as you can already see, like this amount of paint. So if the first amount was 75% water, 25% paint, I would say this is 50-50. So 50% water, 50% paint. There you go. And just be mindful to fill in all the little gaps in the little trees and on the sides of your painting, the tops and bottoms. We don't want to leave any little white splotches. Okay. And again, don't panic if you put a lot on the page. You can always move it around. Okay. And again, it's going to dry down lighter, so don't freak out. Okay, there we go. Got some nice colors in there. And also, you can borrow paint from the page you're using. You don't necessarily have to go back to your palette all the time. If you see a place where there's a lot of paint, go ahead and scoop some up with your brush and just use it to finish off small details, like the gaps in the branches above. Okay, and now we're going to go in with another layer of salt. Okay. This is looking good. All right, and here we go with our hair dryer. I love it. I love that we don't have to wait all the time because I'm super impatient and I don't like doing that. It's just more fun this way too. So I started a new thing. Now I've gotten most of the salt off with my fingers, fingernails, but if it's has to be totally dry to do this. If you take a ruler, the edge of a ruler, the straight edge, and just scrape, it gets it off really well too. So you'll see me do that a couple times in this video. But that's what I'm using, is the straight edge of a ruler. Okay, so now we're going to go in and we're going to draw some more trees. And I see that on the video, I'm sure that the pencil marks that I'm making are a little bit lighter than what you can see. Super, well, I'm looking at it myself while I'm doing this. If you can't see what I'm doing, I'm just putting trees in the background. So between the two foreground trees, behind them, because we're going to do the same thing over again. We're going to create the next process, the next layer. Same thing except with darker paint. So just put trees wherever you feel like putting them. There's no rhyme or reason to this. This is just, again, it's an exercise in creating depth and texture in paintings, to kind of zhuzh them up a little bit, you know? Beautiful loose florals are always fun. Other kinds of, you know, watercolor pictures that we've worked on, more abstract stuff, that's awesome. But there is something really special about creating depth in a painting to draw. It actually kind of like draws you into the picture. Like, oh man, I could be standing at the edge of this picture in real life, like looking at it. So that's what we're trying to learn here, is how to create depth using different levels of paint. Okay, and by levels I mean like different levels of opacity. Okay, so we're just going to draw a couple trees here. All right, and again with our number 12 brush. And this time, what you're going to do, before it was like 50-50, I would say 60-40 on this. So the paint needs to be just a little bit thicker, a little less water. So I'll show you. Okay, so you see how thick that is? Okay, that's where we want it for this layer. Okay, and I'm just gonna, and you can actually pick up two colors at once. You don't have to pick up just one color. Okay, you got a variation of pink and blue in that. Oh, I just love this pink. It is like, I don't know why I'm so into pink right now, but it's just making me happy. I think it's because it's winter and we need some color. Everything is like bare right now. There's that beautiful turquoise. And again, just going straight up and down against that line there. Just don't necessarily want to completely obscure it, but I want to make it less visible. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want to erase the tree that we just drew, but we also want to make sure that not everybody's seeing the sketch lines. Okay, so easy peasy lemon squeezy. And again, just go back with water if you need to, because this is still wet paint, even though you didn't wet the page before you put it on there. And you can move it around a good bit. Like, it'll move, it'll look really great. Okay, now we're just going to go in and do the same thing wherever there's gaps between this layer of trees and the background. Okay. And don't you love the texture that salt created in those trees and the tree trunks? I love that. It's so fun to just look at. It's just a fun thing. All right, doing the same thing. We're borrowing paint. I like to borrow paint to like do in the middle of this. And you can see here, I used my fingers to fix something. You absolutely can do that. There's no problem. You don't actually have to have like a thirsty brush if you need to. Like for this kind of thing, this is just a fun exercise. Use your fingers. It's no big deal. And we'll go back and fix some of those branches later. And, we'll go in and do, just at the very end, you'll see me do some just cleaning up around the edges of the trunks of the trees. Then I'm like, oh, that could be nicer looking. You know, it's no big deal. Like if you want to clean that branch up later, you could. All right, here we go. Yep. Oh, I love that pink. Oh my goodness. See, I'm just borrowing paint from the other part of the page. Okay, we're getting in between here. Okay. And again, I'm not being too precious about the details. So now we're going to go back in with the salt. Okay. And I realized there that I hadn't put in a little bit of detail. But now we're putting in the salt. Okay. And we're going to hair dry it. So again, we're creating that kind of fun acid. It's what do you call it? Not an acid trip. It kind of looks like an acid trip. I guess that's what it looks like. I wouldn't know. I've never indulged, so I have to ask my betters about that. All right, and then we're going to scrape all that salt out, okay? Kind of like, the alcohol ink kind of cool look. That's what we're getting with the salt, and that's what I really like about it. Okay, I'm going to go in with my pencil, and this is another thing that you can do. If you feel like something's gotten a little too obscured, just go back in with the pencil, clean up the edges a little bit, and then when you're painting this next layer, you can just tell where it needs to stop. Okay, that helps give you a good idea how much dark paint you need to put in to like correct something like that little limb there that's looking a little smushy. Okay, so we're putting in just a few more trees. I think 3 ought to do it. Okay, so 1 here. And again, you do whatever you want. If you don't want to do branches, you don't have to do branches. Like I said, you could do aspens. I might try that actually. I might do that as an extra lesson or something, because I have the lessons already planned out for the next 4 weeks, but that might be a good one. That would be a fun one to create depth. And aspen trees are my favorite. They're so beautiful. So here we go. We're finishing off a few branches here. And don't be afraid to get intricate. Okay, it's good practice. I've got like 3 or 4 branches overlapping right here in this one little spot. But you know what? It's really good practice. So don't be afraid of it. Try it. See how you do it. See how you can improve the next time. But yeah, push yourself. That's always a good thing. Okay. Up, up. All right. And this will be my last tree on the page. I'm pretty sure. I think we're good here. Yep, it's a big trunk. One more branch. Awesome. Cool. Now, so what we want to do next with our paint, excuse me, we're going to go in. Oh, am I putting another tree? I am. I'm putting another tree. Oh, yes, I'm brave. Look at that tiny little tree. It's a teeny tiny little tree. Oh, again, see, I've got all these branches going in these little sections, so we'll see how this turns out. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our trusty number 6. Okay, just a little round brush will do. Now, I want this to be 75% paint, 25% water. Like this is like very, very dense on the page, opaque color. And you're going to see when I start putting it in, it's like, woo! Oh, wow, that's bright. Okay, don't panic. That's dark. We need it that dark, okay? So I'm going to do that again. All right, got a little bit more water just to spread it around a bit. Okay. And again, going right up against that tree trunk. Don't be afraid. We are being fearless today. All right, ooh, there's that dioxidine purple. I think that's what you say, dioxidine. Oh, I love this purple. It's one of my favorites. Okay, and now, again, this is still wet paint, even though it's really, really thick. You can still blend it. Don't freak out if it looks way too thick on the page, because we're going to do something really fun with it in a minute. Okay, and I'm going to drop in some of that turquoise. Woo! That is so bright. Don't be afraid of bright colors. There we go. Again, just being very mindful of the details. Okay. And honestly, if you didn't want to go in and sketch with pencil, at this point, if you're comfortable enough, you could just sketch with your paintbrush. And what I mean is you could just start filling in the negative space and just kind of make up trees as you go along. Totally fine. That's totally fine. Okay. And what I'm doing now, I want to show you, I'm just kind of booping some water drops in there. Boop, boop, boop. And you see how it's creating that really cool, again, sort of like the salt did, this really pooling, cool, like almost lava lamp effect in the paint. So when it's this thick, it's really fun to do that. I do love doing that when it's this thick of paint. You can actually just create texture by dropping little droplets of water in there. So I'm just going to continue moving along like I did before with really thick opaque paint. So again, 75% paint, 25% water. Okay, this is blended beautifully. Got that pink in there. Okay, and then I'm dropping the water droplets. So again, just going to move along and do the exact same thing throughout the rest of the painting. Okay, so now we're going to take salt after we've finished filling in all of our background. And you could skip this part if you want, because you do have all that beautiful texture from dropping in those little droplets of water into your wet paint. But I thought, why not? Let's just see what it does. So just do that, hit it with a dryer. I think it will lend a little more texture in the background, but it's not gonna hurt anything if it doesn't. So the only thing with salt and this kind of thick paint is sometimes it doesn't create the same effect because it's soaking up the paint, but there's so much of it, you're not really getting a bunch of like white in your background like you would with like a thinner coat of paint. Like it just picks up the paint so you see the page underneath it a lot easier. So sometimes it works with thick paint, sometimes it doesn't. So see right here on my tree, I said earlier that we would go back and fix things if we weren't super happy with them. This is what I was talking about. So on this particular trunk, I felt like it was a little too blended into the background. So what I did was I just took more of the 50-50 paint water mix, and that's what I did. I just came in and I just gently went across the trunk all the way down, just to where it kind of popped a little more against the background. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I just particularly thought this needed a little extra oomph. All right, so we got that, and I'm probably gonna work on this little branch up here because that needs a little help too, because it's like a pink branch with a pink background, so it's blending in a little bit. Okay, so it's going in with a little purple just to make it pop a little more. All right, and then if you want to soften the edges of that a teensy bit, so it's not like a hard line when it dries, go ahead and spray it. All right, and then you're gonna hit that with your hair dryer again and just let it dry for a minute. It doesn't take very long. So what do you guys think? I really enjoyed doing this particular exercise because for me, I don't want exercises to be boring. So I just coming up with ways to make it interesting, and I just thought with these colors and kind of a fun psychedelic silly kind of bent on it, it'd just be a fun exercise to do. So we're going to be learning more about depth next week as well. We'll be doing other projects in this course with depth and light and how those things play together. But for today, I just wanted to start off with a whimsical take on depth perception. So hope you loved it. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with, and I'll see you next week.